The first morning at Hillside Secondary School smelled of fresh-cut grass and old books, a mixture that did little to calm the nerves of Mr. Rayan Hale, the institution's newest hire. He stood at the main gate, clutching a stack of files, a simple navy blue shirt on his back, and hope, quiet, trembling but stubborn, settled somewhere deep in his chest. It was his first teaching job after years of struggle. He had dreamed of becoming a teacher for as long as he could remember. He wanted to be the kind of person who could reach kids, especially the ones everyone else had given up on. But Hillside had a reputation. A bad one. Students here were known for being difficult, unruly, sometimes downright cruel. 3 years ago, the school had made headlines when a new teacher resigned after 1 week because someone slashed her tires and filled her desk with rotten eggs. But Rayan needed this job. No, he wanted this job. He believed that beneath every troubled student was a story no one had cared enough to read. He exhaled slowly, running a hand over his newly ironed shirt. "Just one day at a time," he whispered to himself. "You've survived worse." And he had much worse. He walked toward the assembly ground where the first roll call of the new academic year was about to begin. Students crowded the area, laughing, shouting, pushing each other. A few of them noticed him and whispered, "That's the new guy. He looks soft. Let's see how long he lasts." Rayan pretended he didn't hear. But one group didn't pretend. A cluster of 5 seniors lounged near a pillar, muscular, confident, and with the unmistakable aura of students who believed the school belonged entirely to them. Anyone would recognize them. The Vipers. That's what everyone called them. Their leader, Darren Cole, was infamous. Rumors said he once broke a boy's arm for looking at him wrong. His right-hand man, Vikram, the tallest of them, was known for a temper so short it might as well not exist. The others, Lewis, Brent, and Sam, were shadows who followed their lead. Darren's cold eyes locked onto Rayan like a predator spotting something small and breakable. "A new toy," he whispered to Vikram, though loud enough for Rayan to hear. "This year might be fun." Rayan kept walking. He stopped near the teacher's area, waiting for the principal to begin the roll call. He could feel the boy's eyes burning into his back, but he refused to acknowledge them. He'd learned long ago that attention was gasoline for boys like that. Unfortunately, ignoring them didn't extinguish the flame. A sudden sharp tug yanked him backward. Before he could react, a hand grabbed his collar. Rip! The sound tore through the silent moment like a scream. His shirt, his only decent shirt, split open at the shoulder, threads dangling, exposing part of his chest. For a moment he froze. Students gasped, a few laughed. Someone took out their phone. Darren's mocking voice slid into the air. "Oops, sorry sir, didn't see you there." Vikram chuckled, "Cheap shirt." Rayan inhaled slowly as heat crawled up his neck. 3 years ago, humiliation like this would have destroyed him, but he had learned to stand still even when the world shoved him to the ground. He turned around. His eyes met Darren's, calm, unshaken, unreadable. "Is something funny?" Rayan asked quietly. The softness of his voice provoked louder laughter. The Vipers thought he was afraid. Darren leaned closer, his breath brushing Rayan's ear. "You're in our school now. You follow our rules. Here's the first one." But he didn't finish the sentence, because a shadow appeared behind him. A shadow with authority. "Is there a problem here?" Principal Arden's voice sliced through the tension. The Vipers instantly straightened up. "No, sir," Darren said smoothly. "We were just welcoming the new teacher." Principal Arden glanced at the torn shirt. His jaw knotted with silent frustration. He'd dealt with these boys too many times. "Mr. Hale, are you all right?" Rayan nodded. "Yes, it was an accident." Darren smirked at the word accident. The principal didn't look convinced, but with hundreds of students watching and the ceremony moments from starting, he couldn't launch into a full investigation. "We'll discuss this later," Principal Arden muttered, walking away. Rayan adjusted the torn fabric. He could stitch it later, but for now, he had to endure the stares. When the assembly began, he tried to focus, tried to breathe. But the vipers didn't leave him alone. As he stood by the teacher section, Darren brushed past and whispered, "You won't last a week." Rayan didn't reply. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't need to. He had already decided something in that moment, something the vipers would only understand too late. This year wouldn't be like the others. This teacher wasn't the easy prey they expected. And by the time the sun set on this first day, by the time the truth came out, by the time fate shifted, those same boys who tore his shirt would be on their knees begging him for forgiveness. But none of them knew why. Not yet. And certainly not how quickly everything was about to change. The rest of the assembly passed in a blur, students reciting the anthem, teachers scanning the crowd, Principal Arden's voice echoing across the courtyard. But Rayan barely heard a word. He stood still, controlling his breathing, his torn shirt fluttering lightly in the morning breeze. Every few seconds he felt eyes on him, curious, mocking, pitying. Some students whispered about the incident, while others replayed it on their phones. But the vipers, they didn't whisper. They lounged, smirking, proud of what they'd done, as if humiliating a teacher on his first morning was a badge of honor. Rayan didn't break, didn't react, didn't even glare. And that bothered Darren more than anything. Because bullies fed on reactions. They starved without them. When assembly finally ended, teachers dispersed toward their classrooms. Rayan picked up his files, pressing them against the torn fabric so it wouldn't flap open. He walked through the corridor as students parted to make way. Some murmured sympathetically. Others giggled. One girl whispered to her friend, "Why didn't he report them?" Another replied, "He's scared, obviously." But they were wrong. Rayan wasn't scared. He was patient. The first class. His first period was Class 12B, one of the toughest batches in the school. A dozen teachers had requested transfers away from that section over the last 2 years. As soon as he stepped in, the room erupted in chaos. Paper planes flying, chairs being dragged, music playing from someone's pocket speaker. No one noticed him. No one cared. He placed his files on the desk, closed his eyes, and waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then a boy at the back noticed the silent man at the front of the room. Guys," he whispered, "the new teacher's here." Slowly the noise subsided. Some students straightened. Some hid their phones. Some just stared. But before Rayan could introduce himself, the door swung open. Darren and Vikram walked in. Late, unapologetic, and completely sure they owned the space. "Morning class," Darren announced mockingly. "Your entertainment has arrived." Snickers filled the room. Rayan simply looked at them and said, "Find your seats." Vikram raised a brow. "You didn't hear us, we said." Rayan cut him off without raising his voice. "Find your seats." A few students inhaled sharply. No teacher had spoken to the vipers like that in years. Darren's eyes narrowed. But he walked toward his seat anyway, as if granting a favor. Vikram followed, slumping into his chair. Rayan opened the attendance register. "My name is Mr. Rayan Hale. I teach English and I expect discipline. I don't tolerate disrespect, but I also don't humiliate my students. Respect is mutual." He said it plainly, no tremor, no hesitation. Some students exchanged glances. This man wasn't soft. He wasn't timid. He was something else. Something they couldn't read yet. Rayan called out roll numbers one by one. Everything was going smoothly until Darren Cole. Silence. Then Darren leaned back in his chair, legs stretched arrogantly. "Present," he drawled. "Not present, sir. Just present." The class tittered. Ryan's expression didn't change. He wrote something next to Darren's name in the register. Darren frowned. "What did you write?" "Nothing important," Ryan replied calmly. "Continue." Roll call resumed. But Darren's eyes remained glued to the register, unsettled by the idea that the new teacher had noted something about him. He hated not knowing. He especially hated feeling judged. A strange assignment. Once attendance was over, Ryan leaned against the desk. "I want everyone to write something," he said. "Not an essay, not a summary. I want a single page about a moment in your life that changed you." The class groaned. "Sir, it's day one," someone complained. "Exactly," Ryan said softly. "And I want to know who I'm teaching, not their grades." Most students reluctantly began writing. Except one table. The Vipers. Lewis and Brent were scribbling nonsense. Sam doodled a dragon. Vikram stared at the ceiling. And Darren, he sat motionless, tapping his pen. Ryan walked toward him. "Is there a problem?" Darren didn't look up. "Yeah, I don't want to do this." "Why?" "Because it's stupid." Ryan placed a gentle hand on the edge of Darren's desk, neither threatening nor pleading. "Everyone has a moment that changed them," he said quietly. "Even you." Darren's jaw tightened. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, not arrogance, something else. Something like pain. But it vanished in an instant. He shoved his chair back. "I said I'm not doing it." The room went tense. Dozens of eyes darted between the defiant student and the calm teacher. Ryan didn't raise his voice. Didn't get angry. Didn't threaten detention. He simply leaned closer and whispered, so only Darren could hear. "You think I don't see past the noise, Darren. I see more than you think." Darren stiffened. Ryan walked away. Lunch break, the trap. By lunchtime, the story of the torn shirt and the silent roll call showdown had spread across the school like wildfire. The Vipers were furious. No teacher had ever spoken to Darren like that, let alone left him speechless. "We have to teach him a lesson," Vikram growled, slamming his tray on the cafeteria table. Lewis leaned forward. "Let's lock him in the supply room." "No," Brent said. "Let's dump water on him." "We could steal his bag," Sam offered. Darren shook his head. His eyes were colder than usual. "No stupid pranks," he said. "He embarrassed me twice. I want something he'll remember." Vikram smirked. "What's the plan?" Darren lowered his voice. A plan was made. A nasty one. One that would have broken most teachers. But they didn't know Ryan Hale wasn't most teachers. After school, Ryan stayed late in the classroom, organizing papers, tapping the torn part of his shirt so it wouldn't flap as he walked. He sensed movement in the hallway. Whispers. Footsteps. Someone pretending to cough. He knew he was being watched. He also knew why. He calmly packed his file and stepped out. The hallway was empty, too empty. An inexperienced teacher would have walked blindly toward the exit. But Ryan had grown up around danger. He had lived through situations where every corner could hold a threat. He recognized tension in the air, the way musicians recognized notes. Still he walked. Slowly. Quietly. When he reached the old staircase, used rarely except by staff, the sound came. A click. Followed by a sudden rush of footsteps. Now. A heavy push hit his back. Ryan stumbled forward. A trapdoor they had loosened swung open. Students gasped. But Rayan didn't fall, because he grabbed the railing with lightning speed. He turned, calm, steady, eyes burning with something none of the boys expected. Not fear, not shock, but disappointment. Standing behind him were Darren, Vikram, Lewis, Brent, and Sam, freeze-framed in horror. They hadn't expected him to react that fast. Or survive. "What?" Brent whispered. "How did he?" Darren swallowed hard. Suddenly, the new teacher didn't look like a victim. He looked dangerous. Rayan stepped toward them, voice low and steady. "Is this what you boys do? Hurt people to feel powerful?" No one moved. No one spoke. He looked directly at Darren. "I told you earlier, I see more than you think." Darren's face drained of color. Because for one split second, just one tiny moment, he saw something in Rayan's eyes that felt horribly familiar. A darkness, a shared pain, a memory they both wished they could erase. Darren took a step back. He didn't understand why his chest felt tight, why guilt clawed at him, why he suddenly regretted everything. Something about this teacher wasn't normal, wasn't ordinary, wasn't weak. "Go home," Rayan said quietly, "all of you." The Vipers fled, running, tripping over themselves, faces pale. Not because he yelled, not because he punished them, but because he didn't. And that terrified them more than any threat. As they disappeared down the hall, Rayan exhaled and leaned against the wall. His heartbeat was steady. He had known bullies before. He had survived far worse than teenage cruelty. But he also knew something else. These boys weren't monsters. They were broken, just like he once was. And what had happened today, what he'd seen in Darren's eyes, that was only the beginning. Because in the next 24 hours, something would happen. Something no one at Hillside saw coming. Something that would flip Darren's world upside down and send the Vipers crawling back to the man whose shirt they tore that morning. Begging for forgiveness. The next morning, students whispered long before classes began. Darren didn't look okay yesterday. He ran out of school, actually ran. What did the new teacher do to them? Rumors swirled. Some said Mr. Rayan threatened them. Others said he used to be a soldier. One girl swore she saw him grab the railing like Spider-Man. But none of those rumors reached the truth. Not even close. Because the truth was darker and softer and older than any of them knew. The Vipers fall apart. The Vipers didn't sit together that morning. For the first time in years, Darren sat alone at the back steps of the school, elbows on his knees, hair mussed like he hadn't slept. He kept replaying the moment Rayan looked at him. The moment he felt exposed, seen, understood. It unsettled him more than falling into a trap ever could. Vikram approached slowly. "Bro, are we okay?" Darren didn't answer. Vikram sat beside him, lowering his voice. He didn't even yell at us. That's the weird part. Darren swallowed. "You don't understand." "Then explain." Darren shook his head. Because what he had seen in Mr. Rayan's eyes wasn't anger. It was recognition. A recognition Darren wished nobody could see. A recognition tied to a memory he never talked about. A memory involving a hospital room, a broken man, and a promise Darren failed to keep. The announcement. Before first period, the loudspeaker crackled. "Would Mr. Rayan Hale please report to the principal's office immediately?" The students whispered. Teachers paused mid-step. Vikram muttered, "We're dead." But Rayan didn't hurry. He walked calmly, even though he sensed the reason behind the announcement. Inside the office, Principal Udden looked furious. "Mr. Hale," he snapped, "there are reports that you endangered students yesterday." Rayan blinked slowly. "Sir, they pushed me." I know, the principal thundered. I know exactly what those boys did. The cameras caught the whole thing. He gestured to the screen. There it was. Full footage. The shove. The trapdoor. Ryan's impossible save. The boys panic. Principal Udden rubbed his eyes. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Ryan nodded. They're kids. They made a stupid decision. Stupid, the principal repeated. They almost caused serious injury. I'm suspending all of them. Ryan's voice softened. Please don't. Udden froze. What? They're angry, lost, hurt. Suspending them will make it worse. Ryan took a step forward. Sir, let me handle it. You want to handle it? Udden frowned. How? Ryan didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was simple. He had handled worse. He had handled broken souls before. And he knew. Darren and the others weren't villains. They were children hiding wounds no one had bothered to see. Trust me, Ryan said finally. Principal Udden stared at him, confused but moved by the quiet confidence. All right, he agreed reluctantly, but if anything happens, I revoke this decision. Fair, Ryan said. And he walked out. Confrontation. Instead of heading to class, Ryan went straight to the back steps where Darren sat. The other vipers hovered nearby, unsure whether to sit or flee. Ryan approached slowly. Darren stiffened. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ryan sat beside him, leaving one respectful step of space. I saw the footage, he said. Darren swallowed. We messed up. Ryan didn't agree, didn't scold. He simply asked, Why? Darren blinked. Why what? Why are you so angry? Ryan said softly. Why do you need everyone to fear you? Vikram, Lus, Brent, and Sam stiffened. No teacher had ever asked such a question. Darren's face darkened. Drop it. I can't, Ryan replied. Not when I know what that look means. Darren turned sharply. What look? Ryan's voice lowered, just for him. The look of someone who lost something, someone who blames himself. Darren's chest tightened painfully. His fingers curled into fists. He felt his vision blur. How do you know? Darren whispered. Ryan hesitated. The truth wasn't something he shared easily. But this wasn't just discipline. This was rescue. I used to be you, Ryan said quietly, a long time ago. The vipers froze. Darren stared. Ryan continued. When I was 16, I had a younger brother. He worshipped me, followed me everywhere. His voice softened, thickening. But I fell in with the wrong people. I became violent, shallow, thought fear made me strong. He exhaled shakily. One night I started a fight I shouldn't have. My brother tried to protect me. Ryan shut his eyes. He was hurt badly, and I blamed myself for a long time. The courtyard went silent. Not a bird. Not a cough. Not a footstep. Darren's lips trembled. What happened to him? He survived, Ryan said, but I nearly lost him and myself. He looked directly at Darren. I see the same guilt in your eyes, the guilt of someone who's still protecting someone who's not here. A tear slipped down Darren's cheek. He didn't hide it. He couldn't. Because for the first time, someone wasn't judging him. Someone understood him. My dad, Darren whispered. He wasn't always like this. He used to be amazing. He taught me football. He stayed up late with me. His voice cracked. Then he got sick, and I wasn't there enough. I was out messing around with the guys. The night he died, I wasn't even home. His hands shook violently. I should have been there, he choked out. I should have been with him. Ryan placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You were a child, he said softly. You loved him, he knew that, and he wouldn't want you punishing yourself like this. Durran's tears spilled freely. Vikram wiped his own eyes secretly. La sniffled. Brent stared at the ground. Sam looked like he might break apart. The Vipers weren't villains. They were broken boys trying not to drown. Rayan continued. You're hurting, and you're using anger as armor because you think it makes you safe. Durran nodded helplessly. But it's killing you instead, Rayan said. He stood. Come to class, he said gently. All of you, let's start again. For a moment, none of them moved. Then Durran stood too, slowly but with purpose. Sir, he whispered, I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was raw, shaky, real. Then he dropped to his knees. Not in fear. Not in humiliation. But in the most painful, honest gesture a boy like him could show. Please, tears streamed down his face. Forgive us. The others followed. Vikram, Lus, Brent, Sam kneeling beside him, crying quietly. Students around the courtyard stopped walking. Everyone stared, because no one had ever seen the Vipers bow to anyone. But they weren't bowing to a teacher. They were bowing to the first adult who had ever truly seen them. Rayan quickly reached down and lifted Durran up by the shoulders. You don't kneel. He said, not to me, not to anyone, stand up. Darren rose, wiping his face. So, Rayan said with a small smile, are we starting fresh? Darren nodded, yes, sir. Rayan extended his hand. Darren shook it. So did Vikram. Then Lewis. Then the others. In that moment, Hillside Secondary changed forever. Epilogue WEKS later. The Vipers stopped bullying others. Stopped skipping class. Stopped causing chaos. They sat in the front row during English. They did assignments. They began tutoring younger students during break. Darren visited the counselor. Vikram joined the football team officially. Lewis apologized to people he hurt. Brent repaired desks he had broken. Sam started art club. The school didn't understand what happened. But Rayan did. And so did they. Because sometimes, a torn shirt at roll call isn't humiliation. It's the beginning of healing. And sometimes, the strongest teachers aren't the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who see the pain others hide. Rayan walked through the halls weeks later, wearing the same shirt, stitched neatly at the shoulder. Darren approached him. You know, Darren said quietly, I think your shirt looks better now. Rayan smiled, so do you. And they both walked toward class. Not as bully and victim. Not as student and teacher. But as two wounded souls who finally learned how to breathe again.